Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Sales Leadership Podcast with Wajid and Simon. Thanks again for joining this new session, this new episode of the Sales Leadership Podcast. My name, I'm Simon Rodriguez. I'm based in Calgary, Western Canada, and I've been working in the professional sales industry for the last 20 years, mostly around technology sales, complex sales processes. And the main purpose of these sessions is to share with you, the audience, our experiences, our insights working in the technology sales aspect and industry. And today we want to complete a session on the program we started a couple of sessions ago into sales methodology, why sales methodologies are important, what are all the different sales methodologies that we have available today, and where to use them, right? How we can get the best out of those different methodologies or programs. So before we go into more details, I want to introduce my partner and co-host here with podcast, Wajid Ali, and Wajid will go with the introduction, and then we'll go into the details. Over to you, Wajid.
Simon, thank you for the introductions. As Simon said, welcome everybody. Thank you again for joining us with this new episode on how we can make your life more valuable and add some more value to your selling processes and selling techniques by sharing the insights and learnings we have had over the past 2 decades. Again, my name is Wajid Ali. I'm based out of Toronto, Canada. Today we are going to talk about the topics that are left over as we go along in this journey of the proven sales methodologies. We have had discussions on some of the methodologies in our previous episodes, so they're all here on our LinkedIn feed. If you have missed some of those episodes, you can still go and watch. All our episodes are about 15-16 minutes long, so it just needs a little bit of your weekly time to go and invest into yourself to make yourself into a better sales leader, into a better sales man, and into a better sales force. Now, again, as Simon said, today we'll be hitting upon the topic that is going to be of value for you and your teams. And this topic is spin selling. It's, again, a very effective topic. It's very popular. It's in the industry. It's in the practice for a long time now, and it comes from a book that is called Spin Selling, which was written by Neil Rackham. So it's a popular book, and the term spin actually stands for 4 different items. So if you start with the term spin, it has SPIN. I will talk about S&P, and I will ask Simon to share the INN with the audience here. So on a high level, and then we can go and have a deep dive about the methodologies. But on a high level, S stands for the situation or situational questions. So when you are with the customer, how can you understand their situation better is by having a list of situational questions. And that's how it is. Now, as I said, we'll go deep into it and understand a little bit more. But now we move into the P, and P is about the problem questions, right? So when you're doing your research and when you're asking questions to your customers, during that process, you have identified some problems, and you're asking the questions to your audience, to your customer, to make sure that whatever you have identified is actually aligned with their, call it, pain points or problems. I'll leave it to you, Simon, to give a little bit insight about the I and the N, and then we can dive deeper into the conversation.
Sure. Yes, and continuing with the next two stages, it will be the next one being implication questions with the I for implication, and it's tied to understanding the consequences and the impact of that problem, that pain point that the customer, the prospect is trying to address. As you highlighted, we did with the P of the problem, right? Understanding those pain points. It's also not only on this identifying the pain point, but the implication goes into what's the implication, right? If this problem doesn't get solved. And oftentimes we see as well when we have discussions about what's the cost of keeping the status quo. That's one thing, which is the cost of doing nothing, right? What's the cost to your company, to your organization of just doing nothing? And what will be the implication if this problem gets addressed and resolved? So It's about having those open questions, those open discussions with your prospects about implications and consequences. So what are the consequences if we keep the same status quo, the same situation, or what would be the new implication if we are addressing this problem? So that's the I for implication. And the final one is the I'll put it this way, the need in terms of a payoff, like need payoff question, which is understanding the value that the customer is getting without any hard selling, right? Like, I'll put it this way, like sharing insights with the customer in a way that they realize the value of implementing the solution, the payoff, the return, without you necessarily selling or position the solution. It's about sharing insights with the customer. They can see clearly how your solution, your offering is not only helping them address that problem, but in the end, it's going to be beneficial to the organization from the cost perspective as well. So it's about realization of value without hard selling, let's put it this way. And then it's that need for payoff. So you need to place those questions in order to go through the process. But as you said, Wajid, initially, this methodology is, again, quite popular. I think having used now, started at least that I remember, at least from my recollection, like in the 90s or like late 90s, widely used, and have been in use for at least 2 decades, if not more. And it has been successful. I like that it's a pretty straightforward structure, and it guides you to that process. Now, as you mentioned initially, if we look at a summary of the 4 methodologies that we have covered, we started these sessions with the challenger sales approach, then we moved into solution selling, we went into value selling, and we're closing off with spin methodology for this selling process. Now, one pattern that I find in common between those 4 methodologies, and I want to hear your thoughts and your perspective, is that they all go with an understanding aspect at the forefront, right? Even if you're using spin selling or value selling, it's all about gathering information from the customer. As you mentioned in one of our previous sessions, it goes into listening more, into listening to understand, right? And then solve. So it's that framework or that mindset that I see as a common pattern between the 4 methodologies, is having that customer centricity, listening more, understanding, gathering insights or intel from the customer, and then positioning a particular solution. But I'm curious about your perspective, Wajid. I know you have worked with these 4 different methodologies and probably some more, but curious about the things that you find in common, and how do you think this could be valuable to our audience here?
Absolutely. Thank you, Simon, for summarizing the spin selling techniques for us and for the audience here. I think it's valuable to basically understand how these different techniques and methodologies work. Although in these sessions, as we were talking about it, we provided very high level information, and the purpose of providing these information were to ensure that our audience know, for those of one who are, I guess, new into this function especially, and even for tenured ones, because what happens is, most of the time we start following one or 2 methodologies, and we forget about that, hey, there are other tools that we can use, or other methodologies that we can use depending on the situation. So I just wanted to reemphasize on why we are doing it. Now, to your question, Simon, what I see a common trend about these 4 or 5 methodologies that we have discussed over the period of last 3 or 4 weeks is, as you said, it's understanding your customer, understanding their problems, and then relating those problems or pain points to your product, solution, or service, and how you can add value by eliminating those problems or pain points. And if you were to summarize in just one blanket statement, that's where you could say that, hey, understand your customer, identify their pain points, go back to your product sales, or product, service, or solution, and then see where you can kind of relate the problem to your solution, and then how you can make that bridge and communicate that in an effective and efficient way, so that when your customer look at it, he or she understands that what is the value and why you're doing it. And I like the thing that you mentioned is, although we are here in the sales function, our job is to bring revenue, our job is to bring uh, numbers, or jack up or increase the numbers for our businesses. But at the same time, when you're in front of the customer and if you come across that, hey, you are really desperate of selling something, you're building walls between you and your customer, right? So you always need to ensure that you come across very authentic. You have done your practice, you have done your research. You're not desperate. You're not there to sell it right away off the bat at that particular moment. Even if you have that intention, you don't need to come across this way. And for that, you need to do a lot of practice. And one of the things that I would recommend here, Simon, is, and I know that we have spoken about it in the previous episode, is if you are able to do some role play with your colleagues, with your peers, with your leaders, before you go out and sit with your customers, especially if it is complex sales environment, that will gonna help you. So besides the methodologies that we discussed, one thing, if I were to suggest, is the practice. And part of the practice is I guess role play is an essential piece of it.
100%. And I think that I will echo that aspect of the practice and building that discipline, that the sales process, because I think regardless of the methodology that you're using, that your organization is embracing or supporting, is beyond that, as you said, there are many common things between those methodologies, and one of those is practice, is tailoring your offering, your solution to a customer needs. And the other one I will highlight is the customer centricity aspect. So regardless of if you're doing spin selling, if you're doing Sandler value selling, it's all about the prospect is the priority, right? So exactly as you said, is you need to focus on adding value to that prospect, and you can do it in many different ways. So understanding and implementing the right methodology at the right time is crucial. And that means that you don't need to use the same methodology all the time. You can adjust and see what works best for you. You can do or use a methodology that is more valuable for your organization. And it's not about selling, as you said, you highly rightly call out, that it's not about pushing the sale. It's about providing value and tailored solutions that are gonna resonate with the prospect needs. And I think that's the key component there, is presenting solutions that are gonna resonate with that customer or prospect pain point or needs. And that's where value comes, right? And in my view, that's the main takeaway. Obviously, we'll have multiple options nowadays. There are even new sales methodologies coming and becoming available, but just focusing on providing value to the customer, having that customer centricity, and just capturing your point in terms of practice and building that habit, to me, are the key elements when it comes to sales methodologies and the effectiveness of those programs. Any additional thoughts or any final comments, Wajid? I know with that we basically covered the main two sales methodologies, but yeah, curious about any final departing thoughts on your end.
Yeah, I think you really summarized it really well, Simon. What I can add here is, since we are just coming to end of this episode here, um, what I will add here is, as sales leaders, uh, when we are working with our teams, it's very essential and important that we spend some time with them, understand where they are in their knowledge, in their learning, in their processes, where they currently stand, how do they approach different situations. Maybe we need to go out with them on certain field exercises, or take them along with us, either way, right? So that they understand the importance of implementing these methodologies. Again, this is asked for sales leaders, and I guess part of the job of a leader is to develop and grow other leaders. So I will wrap up at this. Simon, again, thank you for all the people joining us, all the listeners, all the audience. Truly appreciate your feedback, your comment. Again, as I always say, if there is anything that is bothering you from the sales perspective or from the leadership perspective, and we can add value to it, leave the comments in the comment section below. Also, you can leave a comment about what resonated with you so that we can bring more insight on those topics for the next time. Thank you again, and I wish you a nice and good weekend. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.